always remember, others may hate you, but those who hate you don't win unless you hate them, and then you destroy yourself. Those famous words were uttered by Richard Nixon in his farewell speech to his staff. The irony, and this is the key to blame shifting, there is always denial and self-deception in it. Do you hear what he's saying? Richard Nixon had a compulsion to hate the news media, to hate anyone who opposed him. And what did he do? He learned to hate them back, and he destroyed himself. And that's the thing to remember, is when somebody is shifting blame, it's a recognition of their own self-loathing and self-hatred. Now, this isn't to disparage Richard Nixon. Like, if you knew his childhood and what he went through, he was raised with self-loathing. It's the only way he could experience himself, because especially back then, we didn't talk about or teach these things. So he was just doing the best he could with the information he had at the time. So I don't hold that against him, but I do hold him accountable. And this is the key to remember with blame shifting, is this person is hurt. It doesn't condone their actions. It doesn't let them off the hook. They still are responsible for the consequences, just like Nixon was, of being impeached. He did that to himself. But underneath it, if we hate them, if we don't have empathy for what creates the blame shifter, do you see what we're doing? We're destroying ourselves, just like Nixon. We are caught in the exact same self-deception. That is critical to recognize, because when that assault comes in, that blame shift, man, we want to get him back, and we want to go to this upper righteous position of I'm better than them. But that's why I chose that quote, because when we do that, we impeach ourselves. And that's what Richard Nixon did. He impeached himself. It was his own actions that led to that, what he ended up experiencing in his life. There were people that didn't like him, but his choices set himself up for the failure he experienced. So, welcome back. That's a pretty intense introduction to this video. And if you want to learn more about self-deception, denial, how all of this works, please go to my YouTube channel under the self-deception playlist. I have a bunch of videos, because this is critical to recovering from the worst day cycle. I would also encourage you to go to that playlist, the worst day cycle, and watch my 5-part series on reclaiming yourself by becoming trauma-informed, especially the 5th video, which deals with stage 4 of the worst day cycle, denial. This is the biggest piece of recovery, the biggest piece of life that we're never taught, is how all of us deceive ourselves and how we all shift blame. Most of the time completely unconscious, because we don't really teach it. So it's very critical to me that you go check out those videos. You'll gain a lot of insight into yourself, which will pay massive dividends in your relationships, your career, as a parent, every aspect of your life. Because when you get this understanding of how self-deception and denial and blame shift are robbing us of our full potential, man, your life just takes off. So there's that. So recognize that the core of blame shifting is denial and self-deception. It is the complete inability to take ownership or responsibility for our thoughts, feelings, and actions. And what happens in that moment is the blame shifter projects that irresponsibility onto others. Just like Richard Nixon, he was completely detached from the truth that he was talking about himself, that he had become the person who hated them and was destroying himself with his own choices. And as I talked about, this is the 4th stage of the worst day cycle, denial. It's the single most important step in the process that sets us free and allows us to reclaim our authentic self. It's becoming an expert in how denial and self-deception work. So again, I'm urging you, go to my worst day cycle playlist, watch all the videos there, and go to my self-deception and denial playlist on YouTube. You will gain tremendous value from those, and they will pay dividends in every area of your life. So what are some of the ways that people blame shift? What are key things we can look for? Anytime somebody uses any one of these three processes, most likely the blame is being shifted onto you. And it looks like, well, yes, you're right, but there's always a but. So it's the pretending to be empathetic and understanding, and then the but drops. And that's where it's all going to get spun and placed on your lap of how you're to blame, okay? Or I'm sorry, but. So just look for that. We all know as soon as we hear that phrase, oh, but, we're like, here it comes. I'm about to get hit over the head. And we immediately get defensive, all right? The next common way we hear is because of the codependence and because of the remember, codependence and shame are a lack of personal responsibility. And we're stuck in what's called the adapted wounded child state. We're all children. And this is evidence when we blame somebody else by saying, you made me think, feel, do, or believe. All right? So a blame shifter does this. They're in their sentence will be, well, that's because you. So there's a because and a you. And so right there, they're staying the child because they can't take responsibility as an adult yet. And they may be 70 years old. But that's, I've talked about this in countless videos. People don't realize. Because we haven't taught about codependence or how to recover from the worst day cycle or any of this, the research shows 95% of our adult life we're caught in our subconscious. Our subconscious is made up of the first 7 years of our life. What that means is no matter how old you are, 95% of the day, your thoughts, feelings, and actions, your choices, everything you do are based on those first 7 years of your life. You're still a child. And so that's why, I talk about we have to reclaim our authentic self. We got stunted because of the worst day cycle. And that's why it's so critical you watch those videos so you can gain the knowledge, skills, and tools to understand these processes so you yourself don't blame shift, but you also don't fall prey to a blame shifter. All right? Number 3, I just kind of let the cat out of the bag, is anytime you hear somebody say, you make me feel, you make me think, you made me do, that I just explained that whole process of us being caught in the adapted wounded child and the subconscious programming of our childhood and how we are codependent and irresponsible. And that's what blame shifting is a lack of personal responsibility. We're in a childlike state and we're going to give that responsibility. We're basically placing them as our caregivers in that moment and saying, you're to blame for this, okay? Now we get sucked into this because we are taught as a child that it's our job to fix our parents' problems. No, they don't intend to do this. Our parents adore us. But again, we're just lacking some information, skills, and tools on how to parent in a way that's not codependent. And so when our parents are overwhelmed and can't navigate life, they get frustrated with us. And instead of correcting our behavior, they send the message, we as a person are bad. It's not just that choice we made, but who we are inside of us is defective. Well, because of that, we now feel responsible because our parents then, there's also all of this anger and confusion and frustration at how our imperfections is impacting them. Well, that leaves us thinking we're responsible for fixing the problem. And that's why blame shifters can have so much power over us, like narcissists. If you've had a history of narcissist, well, that tells me about your childhood. You did not have a perfect childhood. Your childhood, you got dumped a lot of blame and there was a lot of gaslighting, a lot of confusion in your childhood. It's the only way you would end up with a narcissist. It's not possible unless you experienced similar conditions as a child, okay? And so you feel, you got taught as a child, it's your job to fix the problem. So I want to give you some solutions. The first thing is when the blame shifter does their blame shifting, pause and ask yourself, is it true? Is it true, whatever their accusation is? That's the first thing. If it usually, well, there's a couple of options. None of it's true. Like, not even close. Maybe portions of it are true, or maybe all of it's true, okay? So if portions of it are true or all of it's true, then step number 2 is own our side of the street. See, this is what happens because we're both codependent. We both fall into the adapted wounded child state. Most blame shifting, what happens is now we blame shift back. Yeah, well, you. Yeah, well, you. And so what we have is 2 children fighting over Tonka trucks, both claiming the victim position, saying, well, yes, what I did, inside they're going, well, yeah, I did do that. But what you did is worse. And that's the fight for the victim position. Ultimately, the reason we don't want to admit the truth that we played a part in this is our low self-esteem. And that's what happens in childhood. When our parent makes us responsible for fixing their problem, we lose our self-esteem. And so that's why when we get with a blame shifter, we end up trying to argue with them and convince them that they're wrong. Because we're in that childlike state, we've lost our self-esteem, our parents have taken it from us, and we're trying to argue. Like this person, your spouse, is actually your parent in that moment. Whether you recognize it or not, that's what's happening. You're arguing with the parent who blame shifted you as a child as well. Okay? So, to bring moderation and maturity into it, is it true? If there is a piece of it that is true, that's the part we own. And so, like I said, our response would be, I hear that these 3 things have upset you. The first 2 don't resonate with me. That's not my reality. I can hear that you're hurt, and I'm sad that you're hurt, but I just don't, as of where I am right now, I don't see that I played any role in that. But this piece, yeah, I can own that. And then we need to put a plan in place to address it. And so we let them know what that plan is. And, you basically let these go because they're not your responsibility. Now, that gets to step 3. We give the problem back to them. Let's go, yeah, I can't resonate with these, but you sound very upset about that. And that's sad to me because I don't like to see you upset. But here's what I know. I trust you and I believe in you. And I'm sure you'll come to a resolution to that. Do you see what that is? We don't take on the blame. We give responsibility for healing and recovering and addressing the problem back to them because this is their problem. Remember, our parents, they couldn't address their problem. They lost containment. They didn't have emotional mastery. They were caught in their own worst day cycle and their own codependence. They dumped responsibility onto us. So here we are at 52 years old or whatever your age is, and we think it's we are responsible to fix the blame shifter's problems. It's not. And so the most loving thing I can do for them is to give the problem back to them. It's there because, do you see, they've dropped into a childlike state. They want us to be responsible. And so what we do is we let them know, I love you, I adore you, I believe in you. And the best way to let somebody know that you love and adore them is to give them the problem. This is the biggest mistakes parents make. They try and fix and solve all of their child's problems, thinking that's love, and I don't want them to hurt. Do you see what the underlying message is? I don't believe in you. You don't have what it takes. You need me. I am a godlike figure. I am the only person who can save you. The world revolves around me, and you won't make it unless you have me. Now, does a parent recognize that's what they're saying? Of course not. They don't recognize it because no one's taught them that that's what we're doing when we're trying to fix their problems. What we're also doing as the parent, for those of you who recognize, oh my God, I do fix my kids' problems. Do you realize why you try and do that? Because your parents made you responsible for theirs, and so you just want someone to fix your problem. You want to feel the empowerment your parents never gave you. So you're not a bad parent, you're not a bad person, you're just the little kid inside of you is going, man, I hurt, I'm sad. I want to feel some power, I want to feel some strength, I want to feel like the world revolves around me because it didn't as a child. And so, inadvertently, I'm going to do this to my child so I feel omnipotent. So it's not a conscious choice. It's people don't like it when I use that term broken. So maybe I'll say it's the hurt little child inside of you that never got its power, its authentic goodness, and it never got sent the message that you, as just for being born, are worth something. You have worth, and therefore it's okay for you to express your inherent power. That was never given to you, and so now you're the adult and you're trying to do it. You're doing it the best you can. The problem is it doesn't work. It sabotages your life, it sabotages your child's life, it robs them of the inner self-esteem and the ability to conquer problems. It creates a dysfunctional, detached relationship because the child recognizes it. Even if they don't get it consciously, subconsciously they recognize this doesn't feel good, okay? So that's what's happening. Now, what's the best way to give the problem back to them? Rephrase all of your comments into a how type of question. So how do you think you'll do that? See, most parents say, well, this is what you should do. No. Well, I hear that you're really sad and upset about that. How do you think you'll address that? How do you think you'll fix that? What are the different ways you think you can conquer that situation? How and what? That's how you want to reframe the questions and give the problem back to them. Okay? So once again, to take yourself out of accepting blame from somebody else, 3 steps. Ask yourself, is it true? If any portion of it is true, take ownership of it, put a plan in place to address it. If it's not true, then give the problem back to them. Remember, they're asking you to be responsible for their problem. It's not your problem to fix. Show that you love them, you believe in them, and you trust them by giving the problem back to them, and you do that through how statements or how questions and what statement or questions, all right? Those are your 3 keys to shift the blame, all right? Now, again, if you want to dig deeper into this, please go to my YouTube channel, the Worst Day Cycle playlist, watch the 5-part series, How to Reclaim Your Authentic Self by Becoming Trauma Informed. This will really grow you in this area. Also, go to my Self-Deception and Denial playlist and watch those videos. And finally, you really want to dig into it deeper, pick up a copy of my book, Your Journey to Success. It'll walk you through all of that. Now, I'd just like to ask, if you think this video will help somebody, please share it. Follow me. That's the only way I can help people get this information, because look, this stuff happens because we're not taught this information. So that's why I push for likes and follows, because it's not because parents are bad. It's because no one taught them. They never heard it. You can't be blamed for doing something you were never aware of. And so I ask for likes and follows, because if somebody's aware of it for the first time in their life, they have a choice. And that's what I want people to have, is a choice to live a different life, because I believe in them. And I think if they just have the information, they'll do it. So leave me your comments. And finally, as always, enjoy the journey.